Are you solving the right problems in your bar? So, welcome to the podcast. This is the BartenderHQ.com podcast. As usual, we will be chatting about the latest news from the world of bartending, as well as what we've been up to this week, out and about, in and out of actual bars, and our big topic, the main course, which comes a little bit later on in the show. So, first of all, let's hit up that industry news. The latest industry news from BartenderHQ. So these, as usual, are taken from the news section over at thespiritsbusiness.com. They do such a good job of curating the news that why should I bother? If you hit up bartenderhq.com, you will find links to all of these articles, so you can read a little bit more. Find Me a Gift has launched Letterbox Gin and Vodka. Now, this is a really interesting idea. Obviously, spirits are a great gift to give to friends, family, whatever the event is, and obviously with Christmas coming up. But it's always difficult to send them because they come in glass bottles that are round, they're too bulky, they need to be signed for, they won't fit through your letterbox. These guys have fixed it, so you will get a bottle of gin or vodka which can be personalised in a letterbox sized and shaped bottle that is designed not to break when it's posted through your door. Aske Stephenson have installed a whisky vending machine that is at the Napoleon Hotel in Shoreditch. Essentially, they do these little sachets of interesting whisky. They're about £8 a piece, about $10. And you buy a token for the machine upstairs in the bar so they can still check ID, and you pop your token in and you get a little 50ml pouch of a lovely whiskey. Sounds pretty good. And finally, Kraken has a salvage edition which is designed to help clean up the oceans, which is great because, as all bartenders know, straws are the devil, and all plastic we can't abide anymore. Therefore, these guys have created a ceramic bottle, and every bottle sold will donate £1 to this charity, which is cleaning up the oceans. Well done, Kraken. What's been going on this week at BartenderHQ? Well, on Wednesday I did my first double shift in a really long time. So I was behind the bar, setting up the bar, and behind the bar, flaring and then breaking down the bar between sort of 9:30 in the morning and nearly 1 a.m. So it was a long day. I am too old for this. However, we made it through. I respect the hell out of every bartender out there that is doing double shifts on a regular basis. I was also out in Leicester the following day, so that was on Thursday, out and about with ODK and Minus 33. Great reception. The guys in Leicester loved it. It will be featured in some bars in Leicester very, very soon. It's great to see the reactions that we get for ODK in the wild. On Friday, I was making drinks in the Library of Birmingham, which is this huge, beautiful building that is open sometimes in the city centre in Birmingham, up in the Shakespeare Memorial Room. Now, this is really weird. The Library of Birmingham was built in, I think, 2010. They started construction. The room that I was serving drinks in at the top of said library was built in the late 1800s, which blows my mind. It has been 4 different buildings since then. It is a beautifully wood-panelled room that's got a death mask of William Shakespeare. It's got beautiful books all behind glass. It's astonishing. There are pictures on the Instagram account. Go over there, have a look. We made 3 drinks for the night in association with Bacardi. We were using Bacardi 4-year-old with a kiwi sparkling daiquiri that we created. We also used Martini Ambarato with yuzu puree and tonic water. And then our final drink was Martini Rubino, sour cherry ODK puree, a little bit of the ODK Falernum, which gives it a great kind of Christmassy spice, and lemonade. That was in a lovely gin goblet. Felt really sangria-y, spicy sangria. It's a wicked drink. I will put all of these recipes on BartenderHQ, and you can check them out online. The main course. The main event. Are you solving the wrong problems in your bar? I think you probably are. I know the last few weeks we've been talking on the podcast about some topics that we don't really touch on normally. It's things that are a little bit more thinky and a little bit less about the sort of craft of bartending and actually making drinks. This is probably going to be the last one of these that I do for a little while, unless you love them, in which case drop me a comment either on YouTube or tweet me at BartenderHQ and tell me that you want more of this. As bartenders, as bar managers, as waiters, waitresses, barbacks, we are often going to end up looking after the problems that happen from day to day in the bar. Now that could be anything from a complaint that comes in or slips and trips, things like that. But I think in a lot of cases we're solving the wrong problems. So we're going to talk about how we can basically make ourselves more effective without having to kind of change things massively. Fingers crossed this is all going to make sense. It makes a lot of sense in my head. Whether it will on camera, on YouTube, on the podcast, I'm not so sure. So the first thing that I've got down is complaint handling. Now obviously, as guest service professionals, as bartenders, as waiters, as managers, we do need to deal from time to time with complaints from our guests. Now, these can come in a couple of different forms. They can come in person on the day, and those are the best kind because you can actually fix it for your guests. You're not having to try and resolve something that happened a couple of days ago when you may or may not have been there. It makes it really awkward for us to try and actually make amends for what's happened. The other situation is obviously when a guest complains about something at the time when it happens, and at that point we should really just be very, very quick and not really kind of trying to judge our guests. We just need to work out what they were looking for. That's probably the issue, is that we had a different idea of what they needed than what they did, so we need to work out exactly what they wanted by asking these questions. Just literally ask them, what would you like me to do to resolve this for you? They will often come back to you and actually give you a much easier solution than you're probably thinking of yourself. This is something that I found for years in bars, is that we kind of overcompensate people for a lot of things, and we don't really need to. Quite often the guest just wants that issue fixed and they're quite happy. However, once we get to trying to resolve something that happened a day or 2 days ago that we've had reported online, whether it be in a review or some sort of an email message or something like that, it often becomes a lot harder to deal with because A, it's very difficult to establish exactly what happened in the first place, and B, it's very difficult to work out if it even happened, and obviously you've got to invite them back for another experience, and they might not be willing to do that because they didn't have a good experience last time, if that's actually what happened. Sometimes it's not, and we shouldn't, as I say, we shouldn't assume that our guests are lying to us by any means, but occasionally people are trying to get something for nothing. So in our first instance, try to resolve things there and then while the guests are in the bar and fix whatever issue they've had. Quite often, if you ask the guest what they would like you to do to fix this, they will say, oh, if you can just get it replaced for me, that is absolutely fine, and then you're not worrying about anything else. If you want to chuck in a bit of a guest wow, if they had an issue with their main course coming out late because it had to be replaced in some way, by all means, at the end of their meal, once they've already ordered their desserts and things like that, maybe promo the dessert. For that guest, not for the entire table, generally won't need that, but if they're happy with the resolution that you've come to at the time for the initial problem and you've replaced it, if you give them their dessert for free, that's a bit of a wow and they're going to come back. So essentially, if you can reverse the problem, you're gonna succeed very, very well anyway. As I said, the more difficult thing is dealing with a complaint after the fact, and quite often in these circumstances, they may not be complaining about the thing that they're mentioning. It might be something else that's happened on the night, or they might actually just not like your venue that much. And in some cases, and this is absolutely by no means not a blanket statement, some of these guests that are complaining, especially if you read through the complaint and it looks like you're hitting your standards of service but it's not what they were looking for, sometimes it's best to just say, thank you for your feedback, we hope we'll see you again soon. Don't try and give them a free meal next time, don't give them free drinks, don't encourage them really in a way to come back, because if the offer that you have, you execute it correctly, but it's not what they're even looking for, perhaps they should find a different venue to go to. This is not saying that we should shift the blame in any way onto the guests. I really don't want it to come across that way. However, there are certain circumstances where guests will come into your bar, they'll be expecting something completely out of the remit of possibility for what you actually offer in your bar, and sometimes it's best to go, well, thanks for trying us, but it doesn't sound like maybe we're right for you. You don't want to say that because you want them to have the opportunity to come back if that's what they'd like to do. However, not every bar is suited for every guest, and if it turns out that you are doing exactly what you want to do with your bar, if you want to be a super craft bar, takes your time over the drinks, and you really want to craft these drinks as a kind of a work of art, or you're a full-on flair bar that really the focus of your venue is to create that atmosphere and the entertainment for your guests, but the guests that's come in just wanted a beer and they wanted it fast and they were annoyed that you were messing around behind the bar, then your bar is not for them, and that's okay. There are lots of bars out there that they can come to and that they'll have an amazing time, but you don't necessarily need to go here, have a bucket of beer next time you come in for free, and change your standards of service to fit that guest. You just need to kind of identify that maybe you're not the right place for them, and that's okay. There are plenty of other bars that they can go and drink their beer in peace. Next, slips and trips. Now, this is one that my wife has mentioned a few times in the past. Now, she, as I have mentioned in the past, has worked as a nightclub manager for many years. She's now moved away from that. She's still working in nightclubs, but not in a management role, and that's not her kind of focus anymore. However, one of the things that she's always focused on is she'd go to these meetings and she'd be told, you guys aren't reporting enough of your slips and trips that happen. So they have essentially a reporting system that they expect a certain amount of slips and trips to happen in a nightclub. For example, because you're going to have wet floors, you're going to have people spilling drinks, you're going to have things dropped, and they have kind of decided that it's a big focus for them to make sure that everything is reported, so that if anything comes back to them and there's a court action or any sort of comeback on an accident, that they have really good records of what's happened. For me, to really focus on reporting these accidents that happen well is very much besides the point, and this is what my wife was saying right from the beginning as well. Surely the point is to prevent those slips and trips from happening in the first place. So making sure that your glass collectors, your floor staff, your bar support, your barbacks are out there, they're making sure as soon as there is a spillage or broken glass on the floor or anything like that, that they are straight out there cleaning it up, making the area safe, at least putting down the wet floor signs so that people are aware if there is a spillage while they get the equipment that they need. Surely the focus should not be on reporting it well, but preventing it from happening in the first place. And this is actually what we're going to come back to a few times in this video, in this podcast, is that prevention is better than cure in all of these situations. So the problem that people are trying to solve of how do we report this better, how do we deal with the complaints better, at the end of the day we need to make sure that we're marketing our bars to the people that would enjoy them rather than the people that are interested in craft beer only and you're in a wine bar, or making sure that people aren't having a slip or a trip. And then as we go through these you'll see exactly what I mean. So kitchen delays is the next one I have on my list. Kitchen delays are something that's going to happen in any food and drink business that is serving food. Eventually, when the kitchen gets really busy, especially if your menu is fairly complex, it's going to take a little while to get the food out. And again, that's okay, especially if you're making things from fresh. You're not, doing like a ping menu where everything goes in a microwave and is just served that way to your guests. I think it's vitally important that we make sure our guests are going to be aware when there is going to be some sort of a delay to food. So, make sure that their expectations are right. So if you have got a kitchen where food takes 20 to 25 minutes to come out, make sure that they're aware of that at the point of ordering rather than 15 to 20 minutes into their order being running and it's going to be another 10 to 15 minutes. So that's one thing. The next thing, make sure that if you have a huge menu, that everything is quick to make. If you have a smaller menu, a tighter menu, then you can be a little bit more complex on those dishes because you're limiting the number of dishes that you're going to be serving. Does this make sense? Hopefully it does. Out of stock items, the 86 list. Now, 86 items, as a bartender, I'm sure all of us know, but an 86 item is an item we've run out of. When something is 68, it's back in the building. An 86 list is vitally important to make sure that all of your bartenders know what you're out of stock of, so you're not hunting around the bar for something, wasting time when you could be making a drink. It's also really handy if you've got 1 or 2 86 items on your bar that as your guests sit down and grab a menu, you can let them know, just so you know guys, we're unable to make this and this drink at the moment unless you'd like us to switch in something else. Like if you're out of a particular vodka, you can sub in another vodka. If you're out of, say, all white rum, then I guess you could make those drinks with a vodka or a gin. They're going to taste slightly different, but as long as you're giving your guests a heads up and they're aware of what's going on, or you could use an aged rum or whatever, but you can give your guests options and they're not going to just be surprised when they can't order the drink that they wanted. So all I'm saying here again, as with most of these things, is anticipating the problem, being able to resolve it before it even happens, and your guests will be happy. As long as you manage expectations, in a lot of situations that is going to fix so many problems. The last one on this list is really important, and it actually is something that we've kind of touched on last week, and it's high turnover of staff. If you are having to regularly hire more bartenders, more barbacks, more waiters, you don't need to think to yourself, God, I've got so many people that I need to hire. What you need to think about is, why do I need to hire this many people? Why are people leaving? What is the reasons behind why they don't want to stay at this bar for a longer time? Are we not paying them enough? Are they not getting any development? Are they not getting the opportunities to go and learn more about the drinks industry? What are their actual ambitions? Are we hiring people that are students that only want to be doing this for a few months to help support their education? It's not a problem if you do, but they're also not the people that you're going to invest a lot of training into, because you know that they're only going to be here for a shorter amount of time potentially. But it's always good to know how long your staff are planning to stay. Certainly if they're going to be leaving the area at some point soon, or they're going travelling, or all of these things are not an issue. There's things that will happen, and people are going to come and go in the bar industry. It does happen, but you are able to incentivize people to stay, and if you're hiring the people that you think will stay, you need to know if for some reason they don't enjoy the job as much as they thought they would. So the amount of money that it actually costs in terms of time, in terms of expertise for the bartenders that you're going to have to pay to come in to do the training, in terms of liability training, there's a lot that has to go on in bringing someone into your business from outside. It's also somebody that you haven't worked with already, so there may be trust issues, there may be other things that you need to consider beyond just, I need to get bartenders in and behind the bar now. What can you do to retain the bartenders that you have? Retaining the bartenders that you have will always be a better option in terms of training money, in terms of keeping people happy, and also consistency within your bar. These guys already know your drinks, they're making them to spec, hopefully. If they're not, then that's something we need to retrain. But rather than bringing someone in that's got a whole other repertoire of drinks that you don't have served in your bar at this point, or different versions of drinks that you do have served in your bar, it's always going to be cheaper to potentially change someone's attitude, give them something that they need to do their job better, and essentially keep them within your business to keep that consistency and that ongoing feel of the bar. Obviously, if people are not working in the business correctly, if it's not the person that you want behind that bar, by all means look for someone else. But if you're happy with the people you have, but they're not happy being there, you need to address why that is and see if there's something that we can do to help them stay. Now, I hope this gives you a little bit of an insight. Now, I know there are going to be a lot of other things, and I'd love to hear what the problems behind your bar are, the things that really get to you on a day-to-day basis, whether it's to do with staffing, whether it's to do with putting your menus together. What are the things that you feel are big issues in your bar? Have a little think through for yourself. Is this actually the issue that I need to solve, or is there something underlying that sits under it? And if you're not sure, by all means, send me a tweet at BartenderHQ. I reply to every single tweet I get, and I'd love to help you kind of work through these things. If you're looking for someone to consult on a bar menu or something like that as well, speak to me, drop me a tweet, and either myself or also Sam, that's working at the Vanguard, which is going so well, he doesn't have time to come on the podcast at the moment, will be able to help you out with that. I've got so many connections now in the industry that I can always find someone that can help if it's not something that I can help you with. So, this has been the BartenderHQ.com podcast. Tweet me at BartenderHQ. That's the only thing I'm going to ask you to do on this episode. And if you haven't got a question to ask, just come and say hi. I'd love to hear from you, and I will see you on the next show.